The lights were bright, and the crowd was buzzing as Tom Hardy stepped onto the Jimmy Kimmel Live stage. At first glance, everything seemed perfectly routine. Polite handshakes, warm smiles, and light banter filled the air. But underneath Hardy's collected exterior, something was simmering. Jimmy, known for his cheeky sense of humor and sometimes pushing the line with celebrity guests, decided to poke fun at a recent rumor circulating about Hardy's involvement in a controversial film role. What started as an offhanded joke soon evolved into a tense exchange. Hardy's expression hardened, his jaw visibly clenched, and his body language shifted. The audience sensed the shift in mood, their laughter trailing off into awkward silence. The once light-hearted energy morphed into something far more unpredictable, and the tension was palpable. Jimmy attempted to laugh off the moment, trying to steer the conversation back to safer ground, but the damage had already been done. Hardy leaned forward, his eyes narrowing, his voice dropping in tone as he responded to Kimmel's joke, not with a chuckle, but with a pointed correction. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said calmly, but with an unmistakable edge. Jimmy, taken slightly aback, attempted to smooth things over with a half-hearted joke, but Hardy wasn't having it. "It's funny to you because it's gossip. To me, it's my work," he added. The audience sat stunned. This wasn't the Tom Hardy they were used to, the charming, mysterious actor often quiet and reserved during interviews. This was Hardy, unfiltered, visibly irritated, and not afraid to show it live on national television. As the tension rose, Jimmy made another attempt at humor, but it only fanned the flames. He brought up Hardy's role in a previous film, trying to lighten the atmosphere by joking about the actor's notorious on-set intensity. "You scare your co-stars, don't you?" he said with a smirk. Hardy didn't smile. "What scares people is honesty. Maybe that's what this is," he fired back. The audience gasped, unsure of whether this was part of the show or a genuine clash unraveling before them. The camera caught Jimmy's fleeting look of discomfort, his smile fading ever so slightly. He wasn't prepared for this version of Tom Hardy, a man clearly unafraid to push back against what he saw as disrespect or misrepresentation. Tom's frustration seemed rooted deeper than the jokes themselves. For years, the actor has been scrutinized by tabloids and media, often portrayed as brooding, volatile, and difficult. Yet, in reality, Hardy is known for his dedication, intensity, and private nature. So, when Jimmy began to feed into those tired media narratives under the bright studio lights, it hit a nerve. "You don't know me," Hardy said at one point, his voice steady but cold. "You know headlines, that's not the same thing." The crowd, unsure of how to react, fell into an awkward silence. Jimmy tried to save the moment with a quick change of subject, but Hardy wasn't done making his point. For perhaps the first time a late-night talk show audience witnessed what happens when a guest refuses to play along with the expected PR-friendly script. The show's producers, watching nervously from offstage, considered cutting to commercial. But Jimmy, ever the professional, tried to power through. "Let's talk about your new project," he offered almost pleadingly. Hardy gave a slight nod, but his demeanor remained tense. He spoke about the film, but with a visible restraint, carefully choosing his words. "This film matters to me," he said. "It's not about box office numbers or internet buzz, it's about real people, real stories. And when people like you reduce it to punchlines, it disrespects everyone who gave their soul to it." Jimmy nodded, trying to regain footing, but the audience could feel the distance that had grown between the two men. It was no longer an interview, it was a live confrontation. What made this moment all the more powerful was Hardy's refusal to let go of his convictions. He wasn't rude, but he was firm. He wasn't angry without cause, but rather he was passionately defending his work and his identity against a backdrop of superficial comedy. Jimmy, perhaps realizing his misstep, began to genuinely listen. "I didn't mean to offend you," he said softly. Hardy looked at him for a long beat before responding. "I believe you, but you did." It was an unexpectedly honest exchange, one that peeled back the layers of celebrity personas and late-night performances. The crowd, sensing the rawness of the moment, began to applaud, not for a joke, but for truth. After a brief pause, Hardy took a deep breath and leaned back in his chair. "I'm not here to fight," he said, "but I also won't sit here and be made a joke of, not when it comes to things I care about." Jimmy nodded, acknowledging the gravity of the moment. He shifted in his seat, visibly humbled. "Fair enough," he said. "Let's start over." And for the next few minutes, the two engaged in a more grounded, respectful conversation. Hardy opened up about his creative process, his challenges, and the emotional toll certain roles take on him. It was a side of the actor rarely seen, and it was all the more powerful because of how hard-won it had been. Despite the earlier conflict, or perhaps because of it, the interview ended on a surprisingly human note. Hardy even cracked a smile when Jimmy shared a personal story about how one of Tom's films helped him during a difficult time. "I appreciate you saying that," Hardy said sincerely. The tension in the room eased. The audience finally relaxed enough to laugh again, this time at a genuine, mutual moment of connection. It was a reminder that even amid disagreement, respect and understanding are possible. The clash may have been fiery, but it led to a deeper, more honest exchange than most celebrity interviews ever reach. As the segment wrapped up, the camera zoomed out, capturing Hardy and Kimmel shaking hands, not just out of habit, but out of something closer to mutual recognition. Hardy's stance had not softened, but there was a sense of closure. The crowd applauded, not in a frenzy, but in a slow, respectful manner. What they had just witnessed wasn't entertainment in the usual sense. It was real, uncomfortable, and deeply human. Hardy left the stage with his head held high, not as a performer who lost his temper, but as an artist who stood his ground. Backstage, the buzz was immediate. Social media lit up with clips from the segment, and opinions poured in from every corner of the internet. Some praised Hardy for his authenticity, applauding his refusal to let late-night culture diminish the importance of his work. Others criticized his demeanor, labeling him too serious or overreacting. But one thing was clear: everyone was talking. Hardy's name trended for hours, and the interview sparked a broader conversation about how media treats actors, especially those who refuse to play by the usual rules. Journalists and culture commentators weighed in, dissecting every line, every expression, every pause. Some lauded the moment as a refreshing departure from the predictable talk show format, calling it a watershed in celebrity media relations. Others worried it would discourage other stars from appearing on such platforms, fearing similar confrontations. But perhaps the real takeaway was simpler. People are craving honesty. In a media landscape dominated by PR spins and carefully crafted personas, Hardy's raw, unfiltered stance was a jolt of authenticity. In the days that followed, Hardy remained silent on the issue, letting the interview speak for itself. Jimmy Kimmel, on the other hand, addressed the moment on his next show. "We had a real conversation," he told the audience. "It got heated, sure, but I respect Tom Hardy more now than I did before he walked in." It was a gesture of humility that many appreciated, and it underscored the fact that even in moments of friction, growth is possible. What began as a clash had ended in a kind of mutual evolution. Months later, the interview remains one of the most talked about moments in late-night history. It's studied in media courses, referenced in think pieces, and debated in fan forums. But more than that, it marked a shift. Stars like Hardy reminded the world that beneath the glamour and the scripted laughs, they are real people with real emotions and real boundaries. And when those boundaries are crossed, even live on air, they have every right to speak up. So, while the headline might scream, "Tom Hardy loses it on Jimmy Kimmel's show," the truth is far more layered. What the world witnessed wasn't a meltdown, but a stand, a refusal to be reduced, dismissed, or misrepresented. It was uncomfortable, yes, fiery, absolutely, but also necessary. In an age of viral moments and clickbait content, this one stood out because it was rooted in truth, and perhaps that's why it resonates still. because it wasn't just another celebrity moment, it was a human one.